I'm always looking for ways to show my cat how much I love her. And with Fancy Feast gems, I can pamper her whenever I want with a savory gravy on top of a gourmet mousse pâté. The pyramid shape makes serving simple, so all I have to do is peel and plate to make mealtime feel extra fancy. And with 2 entrees in every pack, it's easy to turn every day into the extraordinary. Fancy Feast gems.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Has life ever thrown you a curveball? I've been thrown 1, 2, maybe 3. Okay, if we're being honest, a few more in life. And sometimes you just need a professional to talk with it about. And friends help and family helps, but having a professional therapist has been a game changer for me because of the skills they bring into those conversations. And I want you to have access to that too. So BetterHelp, I have been willing to give you 10% off your first month if you sign up today with www.betterhelp.com/difference. You deserve to have somebody walking through this with you. You deserve all the healing. And a professional is the kind of person that will not only listen, but they will give you tools to walk through this journey so that you are not alone. www.betterhelp.com/difference to get 10% off your first month today.
Welcome to the A World of Difference podcast. I'm Lori Adams Brown, and this is a podcast for those who are different and want to make a difference.
A few years ago, a global tech company faced a problem that sounds familiar to a lot of leaders today. Their best engineers were leaving, not for higher salaries, but for growth. In exit interviews, people said things such as, "I just can't see my next step here," or "No one's investing in my future." So instead of just boosting perks or pay, the company did something different. They began to really invest in an internal learning ecosystem, connecting skill development directly to career mobility. Within a year, retention jumped by 35%, internal promotions doubled, and productivity rose. The lesson? People don't leave because they don't want to work hard. They leave because they don't see a path forward. I'm Lori Adams Brown, and this is A World of Difference. After 2 decades in global talent and leadership development, I've seen one truth proven again and again. Companies that invest in the growth of their people build the future of their businesses, their nonprofits, their corporations, all the areas of all across industry where we see talent leaving for so much more than just a bad manager. Let's get into it. We used to say people leave managers, not companies or organizations. And although that is still true, there's a deeper shift happening right now. People are leaving companies and organizations that don't develop them. In today's workforce, talent development is no longer a perk. It's really an expectation. Employees want to know, will this company, will this organization help me grow in my career? Will I learn new skills that keep me relevant in a very rapidly changing workforce transformation across AI and with geopolitical shifts? Will my next career move be inside this company or organization, or do I have to leave to grow? When organizations can answer yes to those questions, then retention soars. And when they can't, attrition becomes the tax you have to pay for underinvesting in your people. In a hybrid world, proximity bias is one of the biggest barriers to engagement and treating employees across the organization with fairness. Too many promotions still go to those who are the most visible and not necessarily the most impactful. So the future of work really demands that we rethink how we evaluate, recognize, and advance talent in organizations across industries. Promotions should be based on outcomes that are measurable, the contributions that they've made to the organization, the collaboration, the innovation, not who happens to be in the office most days or whose manager advocates the loudest or who themselves is the loudest in a room. Learning programs must tie directly to those particular outcomes if we want organizations to be successful and to grow. So when an employee completes a development pathway, it should clearly connect to those new roles in your organization, expanded responsibility, and that should include compensation growth and some sort of version of a compensation package. Otherwise, really learning becomes an empty promise, and talent, especially top talent, is wise enough to understand that they have choices. So when done strategically, talent development doesn't just build skills, it builds the business. Doing an audit across your organization at this point with the transformation of AI in the workforce is something that needs to be done not only now, but on a regular basis going forward because of how rapidly skills are becoming obsolete and new skills are required in our talent across organizations and across the globe. So if you haven't recently done an audit of the skills needed for your organization in the future and even in the near future, I encourage you to do that because matching skills with what you're needing in your executive levels of talent and your manager levels and all across the organization is something every organization should be considering at this point. And once you know what those skills are and where your skills gaps lie, then you can therefore start to assess the talent development practices that you need to implement going forward. So let's talk about that measurable impact. Watt says that companies with internal mobility saw their employees stay at nearly twice as long as those at companies with low internal mobility. So it was a difference of 7.4 years versus 4.1 years for companies with high internal mobility that saw their employees stay that version of that much longer. And the SHRM Foundation, which is an organization that does a lot of research around HR practices in companies, in 2020, they showed in their study that employees who were promoted within 3 years had a 70% chance of staying. And those who made a lateral move had a 62% chance of staying. And this was significantly higher than the only 45% retention rate for employees who did not move at all internally. The Work Institute has stated that the top reason employees quit their jobs is a lack of career development opportunities. So this is an issue that internal mobility directly addresses. Once again, it was very common up until very recently that we would say people leave not a company, but they leave a manager. And although that still is true, we're seeing from some of the research that's being done how increasingly important it is for this internal career development piece, and that, as the Work Institute mentioned, this has become the top reason employees have begun to quit their jobs, according to their research. Gallup's research in 2024, they did a poll that revealed that 51% of U.S. employees are actively seeking or watching for a new job. So for those who voluntarily left, 42% said their company could have prevented their departure. This highlights the widespread risk of turnover and the importance of addressing retention proactively instead of sitting around the executive boardroom table and saying, oh, we really should have done more to retain that individual. Because what the reality is that replacing an employee can cost up to 2 times their salary. But a lot of research shows that at the very minimal, if you have, for example, an employee that you pay, $100,000 a year, it's going to cost about $200,000 to replace them, but maybe even more if they carry a lot of that tribal knowledge that hasn't been documented and is going to be very difficult to replace that. So replacing an employee can cost even up to 2 times their salary, but reskilling that same employee really costs a fraction of that. So this is not just good HR practices. It's really sound business strategy, and it really permeates the entire organization and shouldn't be relegated to just the HR division. In one global initiative I led, we mapped leadership development directly to business growth objectives. So within a year, a lot of companies have been able to see achieving double-digit revenue gains and internal mobility rising, sometimes as much as even 40%. Because when you invest in people, you don't just retain them, you expand what's possible for the organization. Around the world, all of you listening, you're working in different industries, different countries, speaking different languages, and around the world, countries and companies are competing not just for technology, but for talent. So the organizations that will lead globally in the next decade are the ones that see talent development as a growth engine and not a cost center. They're the ones building agile cross-functional teams, and that is required in the future of work strategies that we're seeing and in all the research that shows that these are some of the key leadership core competencies that are going to be needed. Learning agility, self-awareness, and the ability to work cross-functionally due to how self-aware you are and how much you're able to continue learning. Although we're seeing a rise in sort of leaders, especially in the United States, because of some cultural shifts, portraying themselves as someone who knows everything and doesn't need to be curious because they have all the knowledge. I go back to again and again that no one really likes a know-it-all. Those who have learning agility and are lifelong learners and keep learning, especially with all the upskilling needed in this future of work, high learning curve for so many leaders, that I am this self-professed learn-it-all because I not only do love learning and continue to learn, it's a natural curiosity that was developed in me as a child. But if that's not something that you were raised with or that your company has fostered with you, I encourage you as a leader to continue to embrace learning agility because no one has all the information they need in the future of work. So that's why learning agility, self-awareness, and ability to work cross-functionally and learn from one another, these are key aspects to leadership in the future of work. So if you're looking for talent for your organization or you're looking for what to upskill your workforce in, these would all be great leadership core competencies to invest in for your workforce. The companies that are really seeing some differences, they're developing leaders who can work across cultures, across time zones, and across technologies. And they're fostering really these learning ecosystems that are broad and embrace differences and opinions, where everyone from an intern to an executive has access to this type of growth within an organization. And that's really what's giving companies a global edge, is the ability to attract, to retain, and develop people faster than the competitors can hire them. So that's really the global edge that you can have. And that's why the most successful companies today are shifting their workforce strategies from talent acquisition to more of a talent acceleration. What is the growth path for them, even once you hire and onboard them into your company? So here's my message to you. If you're a CHRO, if you're a board director, a CEO, if you're somebody looking for work right now in this wild and crazy job market here in the United States, or if you're somebody that's trying to assess how do we work on attrition and help our retention strategy be more robust so that we can stay ahead of our competitors in this current environment. I would say the future of work isn't about how many employees you have. It's about how many you grow. So I would say stop asking what's our head count and start asking what's our capability count, and really build internal career pathways that turn learning into advancement. So you're going to think about rewarding outcomes and not just visibility, and really understand the performance review process if that's something you do formally. What are the outcomes that this particular leader, this particular individual is showing that they can do? And as you treat your talent development function as the strategic heart of your business, then you know that not only is that exactly what it is, but that you're positioned well for the future of work and all the changes that are happening with AI and how human-centered approaches are really needed to be in partnership with AI as you move forward. Because when people see a path forward inside your company, they stay. And when they feel invested in, they perform. And when they're developed as whole humans, your organization doesn't just survive, it thrives. This whole workforce transformation that we're all in. This episode has sparked an idea for you. I'd love for you to share it with a leader who's shaping the future of the workforce in their particular corner of the world, because the companies that invest in people today will own the talent development edge that's going to be going forward from now into the next foreseeable future. This is how we stay centered on what matters and focused in an area of lots of opportunity and in an era where shifts are happening in multiple ways. And the change management approach, when it's centered in the talent development piece, you're going to see your organization thrive. Are you on Substack? Because I am, and I'd love to connect with you there. I process things there over Saturdays and Sundays, days off, sometimes weeknights as I'm researching and reading other articles, and it inspires me to write things where I'm going deeper into the behind the scenes of what some of the episodes on A World of Difference are all about. I'd love to connect with you there. So if you are on Substack, find me. You can go to loriadamsbrown.substack.com as a free, or I would prefer a paid subscriber, because then you get access to more of the in-depth things that are exclusively for my paid subscribers. I keep my prices as low as they can be on Substack, as low as they allow. But I do believe in being paid for my work, and I believe you should be paid for yours too. So join me there and let's make a difference together. Okay, difference makers, I know you, and I know when you hear something you really enjoyed and you learned from it, you want to share it. I am like that too, which is why I love to promote guests on this podcast for you to get to hear them yourself. Sometimes they write books, sometimes they write on Substack, sometimes they podcast, sometimes their voice is just every day in the workplace where they live and impact their communities in a variety of ways with all the hats that they wear. So if you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you did, please share it with a friend, a parent, a neighbor, somebody you went to boarding school with back in the day, somebody at work, your boss, people on your team, because this is a message they needed to hear. And it have impacted you. Please give us a 5-star rating and give us a review. It really helps our reach for more people like you to find us, the difference makers, the listeners, the leaders, the people in your communities that are making the world a better place. I appreciate you so much.